You are listening to These Are The Films, and this episode we're going to be talking about Big Trouble in Little China. Hello, welcome to These Are The Films. I am Crispin Reed, I'm here with my colleague Jim Fleeting.
Hi. So it works a bit like a book club, but it's a film club, so it's like a book club with films. You watch a film, we watch a film, we talk about the film on the podcast. That's pretty much it. You have to tell us what you thought of the film, and also you have to tell us whether what we think of the film is wrong or right or whatever. All of that stuff you can do on Twitter, on TATF Podcast. You can email us at show@thesearethefilms.com. Our website is thesearethefilms.com. We've got clips and links and all of that good stuff on it. And facebook.com/these. So look forward to hearing all of them from that.
Yes, and a disclaimer, as always, there will be spoilers. There is going to be spoilers because we're talking about a film for an hour. How could there not be spoilers?
Indeed. There'd be very little to talk about if we were just talking about the idea that the film might have been made rather than actually talking about the contents of said film.
Maybe we could do little ones that didn't have spoilers called These Are The Trailers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. Like how everyone has been going absolutely ballistic about that Ghostbusters trailer, because obviously it's going to be a terrible movie just on the back of a 2-minute trailer. I mean, unfortunately, it did come out this week, and it turns out that it actually is terrible. So I'm mildly irritated that everyone who's been going berserk about that trailer is right.
Who said? I saw a thing on Reddit of people. It looked very much like they were conspiring to make sure that everyone thought it was rubbish.
Everyone wanted it to fail.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, they haven't actually gone back and... They haven't done a George Lucas. They haven't gone back and actually spoiled the original films. They've just made a different film. Just don't watch that film. It doesn't change anything. And yes, it is probably sad that they didn't... If they're going to do a Ghostbusters film, it would be nice if they made a good Ghostbusters film, but they haven't actually ruined the original film. I mean, some would say, and when I say some, I mean me, would say that the original film was slightly ruined by having a sequel, which I thought was poor. But people seem to have rewritten history about that film and think that it's a genius. Yeah, I think so, but I think that's more to do with that.
And who thinks Ghostbusters 2 is good?
I don't know. You know, if you... Idiots. You know, there's possibly some very intelligent people who think that. I've been hearing people when they've been talking about the franchise, and I think it's in light of this new reboot, they've been saying that the first two were amazing and it was a great franchise and it's been ruined. And I think it's also that sort of cult of personality around Bill Murray as well, because people seem to think that he can do no wrong when he has done wrong. But the majority of his work has been fantastic. He's a very talented guy, but it's not like he's immune to have made a bad movie. I mean, he made Ghostbusters too.
Yeah. But probably did well out of it. You know, it is his job after all. You know, we've always got to remember it is their job.
Yeah, and again, it's not like you know, it's not like he made Citizen Kane 2. He made Ghostbusters 2. You know?
Yeah. So to the point in hand, then.
Indeed.
To the film in hand. What are you drinking? Is that Bovril? A big cup of Bovril.
I do like Bovril.
Just a little gip.
It's the only thing for a December night on a Scottish football terrace, I'm telling you.
Well,
it's not the most pleasant place to be, and you need something that is something robust to keep you warm.
Yeah.
And a cup of Bovril is perfect for that.
Or blood.
Yeah.
So, Big Trouble in Little China, then.
Indeed.
Big Trouble
in Little China.
Big Trouble, Little China.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it? It sounded like you were about to enjoy it before when I told you what it was last episode.
Yeah. Well, I had every intention of enjoying it, and there was I got to admit, there was a point in the middle where thinking, I thought, you know what? I thought I'd enjoy it more than this. And then I started enjoying it again. I was thinking to myself, I wish I was in a different mood to be watching this, because I'm not really sure it's getting me. But that's not how films work, is it? The good films, you sit down no matter what mood you're in.
Oh, I don't know. No, I think mood has a massive part to play in it, and like how something's received.
Yeah, but I wasn't in a sufficiently bad enough mood for it to be rude. If I'd have been watching Indiana Jones, the first one, then I don't think I'd have been sitting there a bit bored. But I kind of was a bit in this film, but that's before.
Really?
Yeah, but then it got really good again, and I was really pleased.
I thought that, I think I laughed out loud more this time watching it than I have all the other times watching it. I think because I was sat down I was having like a treat time. I had a couple of beers, sat down by myself, kids asleep. I've got the whole lounge to myself. It's on the telly, good, and I just thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Brilliant. I wish I'd had that. I think there was an element of me having to get it watched.
Did you watch it today?
I watched half of it today, half of it last night. It's not a great way to watch a film. You really want to be in the moment with it, with all your comforts, a nice couple of beers, whatever.
Yeah.
I watched the second half of it with my 4-year-old son as well. So he's just been watching Ninjago about Lego ninjas. So I said to him, "Do you fancy watching a film about real ninjas?" And he said, "Oh yeah." So we watched it.
Real ninjas.
Yeah, he wasn't scared by some of the aspects of it. He didn't seem that bothered. So yeah, but no, I enjoyed watching it. I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I persevered through it, because it gets really, really good at the end again. And I think it's one of those. I don't think I was forgiving it, and I also think that I kind of got into this idea. I've got such a bad opinion of the 80s as a decade that it's almost like I don't believe that something made in the 80s has the ability to be sophisticated enough to be like a parody. And so I wasn't watching it as if it was a parody. I was watching it as if it was supposed to be like that. That was what the movie was. And I kept having to remind myself, don't be daft. You're not supposed to think that. You're supposed to laugh at that. But yeah, I got back into it again. So yeah, I think I just didn't.
Yeah,
maybe watch it again. And
I was wondering about that because, like, with how much I actually laughed at it, and I thought that was quite weird because I would have, usually, comedy films date terribly. I think, even like a comedy dates very, very badly. I think, like if the things that you used to laugh at, that would have you in absolute pieces when you're 15 years old or 12 years old or 20 years old or whatever. When you go back and see them, go back and rewatch them, then sometimes they're really terrible.
Yes.
Like the young ones. I just can't watch the young ones. I just think this is absolute rubbish.
Yeah, and I remembered, I had a flashback. The bit where he shoots this gun in the air and the ceiling falls in and knocks him out.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
And then he misses the whole entire fight again.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that in the cinema, and and that's how I suddenly remembered that I'd seen this film in the cinema when it came out. And when that bit happened, I laughed and, like howling with laughter. Just the whole cinema was like falling off its chairs, laughing at the fact that he shot the ceiling and the ceiling fell down on his head. And I was just like, God dear me, the 80s. That's what I mean about we're so unsophisticated. But I think one of the reasons why this film doesn't date, going back to what you were saying, is because the thing that it is parodying has become probably more popular in Western culture since the film
Yeah.
It was before the film was made, and so it's parodying. I think it's pronounced wuxia. W-U.
Mm.
Whoop is spelled. That sort of style of Chinese storytelling and cinema that's like kung fu, but with supernatural kung fu.
Yeah.
And and that became massive after the turn of the century with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and the films that came after that, which are
and
absolutely
previous to that,
extraordinary movies.
it was massive, but it was sort of like a massive cult thing, wasn't it? So there was a big fan base for it in Europe and the US.
Yeah,
but it was kind of underground, right?
Yeah, and then you had like the Wu-Tang Clan who reference it a lot, and so since the film, it's become very much
interesting.
Which people come aware of.
Interesting, you say parody. Do you really think it's a parody? I don't think it is a parody. I think it's just is John Carpenter making a John Carpenter film like that?
I mean, it's maybe not a parody of a wuxia film or a wuxia film or a kung fu. Let's just call it kung fu movie. Yeah.
Okay.
I
think wuxia makes you sound loads more clever, though.
I know. Well, that's why I'm saying it.
We should have practiced it a bit better.
Well, yeah, but we don't like to talk about it before we actually get into it, do we? But yeah, it's weird. But I don't want to. Yeah, it's like one of those things that if we say wuxia a lot, then that's a lot of edit points if I'm pronouncing it wrong.
Yeah, as if either of us is going to go back and edit it.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think that what it's parodying isn't wuxia. I think it's a tribute. He's making a wuxia film which is parodying 80s action. So the 80s action movies are getting parodied, but how he's making a wuxia movie is just because he wanted to make one.
Yeah.
Because I think that people like that sort of filmmakers like that sort of movie in the same way that filmmakers always like a zombie movie. Seems like to me like the only people who like zombie movies are people who make movies. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I kind of like zombie movies, but I don't. Yeah, I don't have a particular passion for them. But yeah, it's a thing, isn't it? But I think anything that you can put before movies, so like any sort of brand genre, then that's about filmmakers being able to talk about them more than it is about people saying I like this brand, this genre of film.
Yeah, and some of the genres like we talked about before with sci-fi as a genre. The genres are considered more highbrow than others, but not for reasons of any sort of content that I can see. Because why do people respect a zombie movie more than they respect a sci-fi movie? When I would imagine that it's pretty tricky to make. Or it certainly was pretty tricky to make a decent sci-fi movie.
Yeah, and everything blurs so much now. Anyway, and not just with film, with TV as well, right? You got when you think of the Battlestar Galactica reboot, which was basically The West Wing in space.
Yeah.
There's virtually no sci-fi in that at all.
And Deep Space Nine, which is Crossroads in space.
Yeah.
I can't take credit for that joke. That joke was from our mutual friend Adam.
Yeah.
It's an amazing joke.
Back then to Big Trouble.
Yes.
To run through the establishing shots, the very beginning of the film with Egg Shen and Egg Shen and the lawyer.
Is there a better way? Is there a better way of starting a film than having just Victor Wong's face? I love him. He's brilliant.
Well, here's the thing. That was added after test screenings.
Forgotten framing.
At the behest of studio execs.
Yeah.
Because the test screenings, they felt that
people didn't have a clue.
Well, the thing, their big concern with it was that basically the white guy comes across as the sidekick, not the hero.
He's meant to.
Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? He is the
He's,
sidekick. He's
that's the point.
completely inept through the entire film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why. And then when
both John Carpenter and Kurt Russell have come out and specifically said that he's the sidekick, but he thinks that's the joke. That's the joke of the movie. That's the funny bit of the movie. That's the point of the movie.
Yeah.
Trying to undermine that is just ridiculous.
But then they did it. Well, that's what happens, isn't it? Because they test something out and then they go, oh no, well, we'll have to do this. So have to pop a bit at the beginning of the film that just says, right, guys, everyone listen to me. Just before we start the film, Kurt Russell's the hero, okay? Not the sidekick. And he pretty much explicitly says that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You got to leave Jack Burton alone. He's the hero.
Yeah.
And then he just does nothing for the whole entire film.
Yeah. He's absolute rubbish. He does get his track back.
Completely bewildered. There's actually I saw on I forget where it was. I will put the link in the site afterwards. Someone's done an edit of Big Trouble in Little China, which is just him being confused.
It's really long.
Yeah, it's pretty long. Because that's all he's doing in every single scene.
Well, apart from the bit where he kills the bad guy.
Yeah, but that is the only point at which he's not there just as as a comic narrative force, if you like.
Yeah. I mean,
where are we? What are we doing? What's going on? Tell me.
Yeah. Well, the idiot lectures. He's the idiot.
Yeah.
For all of the idiot lectures, he's the idiot. But that's the funny bit. The whole point is that it turns everything on its head. We're watching a 80s American Hollywood movie, and he's the white guy and everyone else is Chinese, so you expect him to be the star because that's how Hollywood works. But not only is he not the star, he's the sidekick. He also does things like, the old Chinese guy who philosophizes a load of nonsense. He does all that, so he's actually the stereotypical minority, and all of the minorities are actually playing the white guys in. So it's sending up Hollywood in that respect as well, and the racism in Hollywood and how Asian actors are portrayed in Hollywood. So yeah, although maybe thinking a bit too much of it, but that's what I think.
I think you're absolutely right, and it's done in a really fun way as well, because it's everyone is having fun and I guess embracing stereotypes, like you said, and also even the fact that you try and make a 80s action movie style, forgotten the posh word for your film again. What's Wuxia. The whole thing, it's all a bit absurd. It's all a bit like watered down. Here's your culture. We've taken some bits that we like, and then we've made it into what we think works best.
Yeah.
And then, as art mimicking life, the studio execs come in and say, "Well, okay, let's just put this bit on the beginning so that your joke is ruined."
Yeah, I mean, I actually ended up having to research, because as you're the host of today's podcast, I get a week off and I don't have to do any research for it. All I've got to do is watch the movie and write down a couple of glib remarks that I may or may not make. But I actually had to look that one up because I couldn't let it pass, because he's what? He's in the police state, or he's with a lawyer or something, and that's a how we got here moment, which I really like. I like that gets slated a lot in films, but I actually like a film that starts in a certain place and it gives you a scene of it and it kind of explains to you, and then the film is how we got to that first scene. I quite like that. I've always enjoyed that. It can work really nicely. But we never get to the point where he's there. That's not in the film. He never talks to the police. He never talks to the lawyers.
No.
What's that got to do with the
At
movie?
the end of it, he's going on holiday. There's no. The whole thing's completely nuts.
Yeah, so I had to look it up because I was thinking that scene doesn't fit in the film. It's just not in the film. What's that to do? So I looked it up, and it turns out it's because it was, filmed after, that made the movie.
Mm.
They just added it in. Good old studio execs.
Yeah, but like you say, it is a good. It's also it's a good start to a film.
Yes,
because it's all set up for you, and then is sorcery real? Here we go. Exciting.
Yeah, that also helps because, I imagine when they tested it, they were like, people were saying, "Oh, what's the magic thing?" Because how people need to have these things hammered home to them. Mm-hmm. The magic thing is magic's real in this film. That's it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. It's a film. So yeah.
So, what do you reckon? What's your favourite scene? What's your the standout scene for you in the film?
I really like it. It's almost a nothing scene, and it's really, really short. But when they're all in the lift.
Oh, mate, that's mine.
And they're all coming up on the.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that bit's because they underplay it so much, but they're all just start like grinning, and they're all saying stuff like, "Yeah, I got a very positive attitude."
I don't know about you, but I'm actually quite looking forward to this. We're about to go and face some certain death. I don't feel scared at all. No, do you? No. Mm.
I really like that bit. It really stood out just as being really warmed, and then they were all having fun doing the film, and it really kind of, I don't know, it made the film. I think that at that point I was just like, yeah, this is a brilliant movie. I think it was prior to that I'd started to get a little bit bored.
Right. What sort of say prior to that is midpoint?
Yeah, I think second half of the second act, I got just started getting a bit distracted. First act was good. It's always the same with me. I'm always like this. I like a good first act and I like a good third act, and I could just do without the second act.
You need a bridged film.
Or just make a really long first act and a really long third act. And don't worry so much about the middle bit. The story of the movie. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I just want it set up and then end.
There's lots of stuff it's set up really quickly, isn't there, in this film? We have Jack's attitude. Even ignoring the first part that isn't really part of the film, our first establishing shot stuff. Even ignoring that, he pulls in. So here's a loner. Here is his friend. They meet up. I love the gambling as well.
I know, yeah. Loads of Chinese people in a big circle with fists full of money shouting.
Nothing, and you never see what they're gambling on.
No,
well, apart from I guess like at the end of that piece of the scene, at the end of that.
I can't imagine how many films that scene is in.
Yeah.
It's like the dollars coming out of a fist in a big circle, screaming your head off.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
And that was at the end of that as well is the first point at which I actually laughed out loud for real.
Yeah.
It was when he was saying he had almost $1,000, and then and Wang says it's 1,148, and then they have the double or nothing, and then he wins and he says, "Oh, you owe me 2 times $1,148." And that was just such a tiny little joke.
Yeah.
Just left. Just like, I'll put that there.
Yeah.
It really tickled me.
He's very good, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing about our man Kurt. Always good.
Yeah.
Had a conversation on Twitter with someone this week about and they were Angry Sith. They're called on Twitter.
Okay.
Angry Sith.
Good. Yeah. If we're talking about people on Twitter, put the handle out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he was saying. I'm assuming he was saying that he was really pleased about it being Big Trouble in Little China. He's looking forward to watching it. And also, when we were talking about it, that Kurt Russell has been in some bad films.
Yes.
But he's never been bad in the bad films. He's always good.
He's been in millions of films.
Yeah. And some really, really bad ones.
Yes.
But he's always good.
I suppose, yeah.
And you know, it's kind of, you don't, because he's not at all thespian.
No.
And because he does action films and comedy films, you know, you don't, I don't tend to really think of him as a really good actor.
Well, he was getting nominated for Oscars and stuff before this, you know.
Really?
Yeah, I think, didn't he do Elvis with John Carpenter? Didn't he get not that?
Elvis?
Yeah.
No, he did, not with, I don't know, what, is he in an Elvis film?
I think so, yeah. Well, no, he is in an Elvis film, but he's in a film about Elvis. He's in both a film with Elvis and he's in a film about Elvis.
Is he Elvis in the film about Elvis?
That is my understanding. I haven't seen the film. And today, you're the one who's supposed to research this podcast, dude.
Oh, yeah. Give me a break.
All right, dude. I know you can't have everything. You can't get everything. But no, I mean, admittedly, I know a thing or two about Elvis. For those of you listening, I just stood up and showed people my shirt with a big picture of Elvis on the front of it. I like a bit of Elvis. Yeah, he was, when he was a kid, he was in, I can't even remember. I can't remember the name of it, but he was in a film with Elvis.
Because he was a kid actor, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But that, other John Carpenter things he did was Escape from New York.
Yep. Snake. Well, that's his quintessential. That's what people say is his big role, isn't it?
Yeah.
I never bothered with Escape from LA.
No.
I didn't trust it.
It's just got to be terrible.
I was late. Yeah. I might watch it at some point. I feel like I ought to now. You know, I'm I'm on paternity leave, so I've got all the time in the world for it. Yeah, but I'm pretty busy. But yeah, you know, I feel like I'm in a bit of a John Carpenter mood, so I might actually watch it. See what it's like.
Have a rinse out.
Yeah. Yeah, I might actually watch The Thing. I've never even seen it.
Oh, have you not? See, The Thing actually, interestingly enough, Jim, The Thing was my second choice. I was almost going to be The Thing, and then I swapped it to Big Trouble in Little China just at the last minute.
I'm glad you did, because I don't think I could have watched The Thing with my 4-year-old.
No, probably not.
But, no, I think I'll wait. I'm not going to watch The Thing. I'm going to wait until we do The Thing, and I'm going to watch it for the first time for the podcast.
Righto.
Anyway, we digress. Yeah, I think he's very good. He's obviously supposed to be just doing a John Wayne impression, but I think he sounds more like he's doing an impression of Private Joker from Full Metal Jacket, doing an impression of John Wayne. Yeah. But it's not meant to be good, is it? You know, you're not meant to. It's not meant to be a good action hero voice.
No, that's it. Well, that's it. The thing is, he's supposed to be a dafty. That's it. And his whole reason for being there is just because he's Wang's mate, and he's accidentally left his truck there, and you know the whole thing is accidental, and he's got no reason really to stick around.
Yeah, and he's really good at being a dafty. He just, I mean, things like, you know, just not being able to be in any of the fights.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, you know. He's the in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, there's like the police chief who's a bit rubbish, and in actual fact, during all the fights, he kind of gets in people's way and they have to fight around him and stuff, and he's almost like that. So I think that having the dafty in Wuxia movie is a trope as well. I think that's a common thing to have. Yeah, I like it when he knifes that guard and then it falls on him and he spends the rest of the fight just trying to get the guard off him because it's so heavy. And he just misses the whole thing.
And what are those massive boots that he wears? It's got like almost knee-high, big strappy leather boots down up over his jeans. It looks absolutely ridiculous.
I think I just wrote that. See, I think there's what people actually wore in the 80s, and then there's, I think, what people wore in films in the 80s. And I think those two things are quite different. And I think that they are generally spectacularly outlandish in 80s films. And I don't know, there might have been some other interesting joke about that, but I just wrote that off as being another piece of crazy 80s cinema that fortunately we've got over.
I looked up, you can buy his t-shirt, his vest, or his tank top, as they say in the US.
Oh, yeah?
Loads of people sell it. But there's I will, of course, link to it on the site, where I found some good ones. Well, some of them were just rubbish. They were kind of like it.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of good ones.
A good t-shirt's an important thing.
Yeah.
Our pals at bathroomwall.co.uk just sent us a few, which is very nice of them. I'm currently sporting, I'm going to stand up for it, my Autobahn t-shirt from the German band in The Big Lebowski.
They're nihilists.
They are the nihilists, yeah. So check out their shirts. They do a lot of rock and roll stuff. I actually got the t-shirts in more conjunction with my place in the world of rock and roll than in the world of cinema, but they do crossover shirts for them as well, so check them out. Anyway, we digress again.
Yeah, we're not. No ads, not sponsored.
No, we're not sponsored. I'm sponsored for something else. I just happened to mention it on this as well because I got a t-shirt for Crispin, so I thought I'd better say it on there too.
That's it. Right, back to the film in hand. So
yes,
the middle bit. You weren't interested. It does kind of drag it. They do sort of like go in.
They go in the place. They go out the place. They go in the place. They go out the place.
They walk around the place.
Give me a break.
There's some gags. There's some fights, and then they just come out and get in a truck and get in a bus and drive off. Yeah.
So I thought it was what it was. I'm really glad that they went and. Well, I think really what picked it up was Egg being back in it because he's funny. He's really good. I enjoyed his performance greatly. And
it sets up. I mean, I tell you something that I think is interesting is that of all of the other films that we've done, when we've talked about the what is it, the like the screenwriter's plot points thing.
Yeah.
That most of the films that we've done have played with that to some effect.
Yeah.
Whereas this is just like exactly that. It is. Here's the inciting incident, followed by whatever comes next, the lock-in. Then it follows it absolutely so directly.
I think it has to.
Yeah.
I think it's the things that it's parodying. Your 80s action movies would be unsophisticated in terms of their structure, and I haven't seen enough Wuxia movies to really, especially ones. I have seen some, but they've all been, these great, wonderful pieces of cinema that the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and that came after that, Hero, and brilliant films. But I haven't seen the ones that came before this film. So I don't know enough about it. But in my head, they're probably not very sophisticated in terms of their plots because they're vehicles to show off some martial arts and some trapeze work and some people with funny weapons.
Yeah.
Because you have people with daft weapons. Yeah. Like spoons would spin around.
The spinning spoons.
Spoons would spin. I like the rakes that came out that had the sort of claw ends. I thought as funny, as weird kung fu weapons go, they were good.
I tell you something that I was a bit confused about was that when at the not the beginning, but I guess the end is when we're going for the lock-in at the end of the first act. They're stuck in the truck. They're driving down this alley that's just too small to drive an enormous Trans Am truck down. There it is, and then there's the fight. So there's the red turban guys behind about to fight the goodies. Everyone's fighting, and then the storms appear.
Yeah.
And just beat everyone up.
Yeah.
But then the next scene or the following scene, the red turban guys are for working for David Lepan and always have been.
Yeah, I think it's.
I'm confused.
I think that they don't. The storms are just killing the. I forget their name. The guys with the nice hands, like the goodies. It's just quite confused and difficult to see, but I do think that's what it's supposed to be. But
I wasn't picking plot holes. I just didn't understand.
There's no point in picking plot holes in this movie. It's impeccable from start to finish.
Well, I did. Yeah, you say that with a big smirk on your face, but I do think it's impeccable. I think it's really, really good. Really good for a highbrow, lowbrow film.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. It's a good movie, bad movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that I found weirder is the parallels between this film and Live and Let Die.
For example, Katanga's death.
Yeah.
And how similar that is to Thunder's death.
Yeah.
In that they're both some of the worst bits of cinema I've ever seen. I mean, it really lets down this film, I think, that death. Yeah, I don't like that death at all. I suppose that in committing suicide, Thunder is trying to take them with him.
Is he though? I think he's just like he's so cross that he's been such a failure.
He's lost control of his inflation powers.
I think he just kills. I think he just does himself in. I think it's.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think it's very good though.
But yeah, not a point to dwell on, is it? I mean, even the whole the killing off of David Lepan, it's there's no real build up to that as a climax.
No,
it's just like boom, boom, bam. Oh, you're dead.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but then of course you've got that thing of the big boss isn't the end boss, because then the end boss that they have to fight at the end, because you've still got there's a name for that trope. Once in the past I got addicted to the website TV Tropes.
Right.
And it's got names for every trope, and it's ridiculous because it's like Wikipedia, it's crowd fed. So, but the trope of the henchman still being alive after everyone's dead, and the henchman still comes to get you, like in with the big tall tower and Bruce Willis and Christmas and all that.
Yeah.
What's
Die
that?
Hard.
Die Hard, yeah. The henchman coming up at the end. Well, you get that with Lightning, and he's like the hardest guy to kill.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so Thunder just tops himself.
Yeah.
Then there's Lightning. What happened to the other one? I've forgotten.
What does the other one do?
Rain. What happened to him? Where did he go?
He must have died before.
Well, obviously we're both paying full attention.
Yeah. I was too busy laughing, really, I think, at those points.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are the parallels with Live and Let Die?
The monster at the end.
Yes. Yeah.
Because Baron Sandy at the end of Live and Let Die is on the back of the train.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just sitting there like...
Yeah. And that that's kind of a weird thing about Live and Let Die, because James Bond isn't supposed to be magical realism. It's supposed to be realism, sort of. Not fully realism, but it's not supposed to be supernatural. So it was odd for them to throw that into the mix. But I don't want to slag off Live and Let Die too much. I mean, I like James Bond movies, and it's probably the best James Bond movie.
Do you think it? Oh no! Well, let's not get started on that.
No, God, that's a whole podcast.
But I think I'd agree with you. It was definitely my favourite when I was little. No, it wasn't. Moonraker was. I think
that's because when you were little, you were an idiot and you didn't know anything.
We've talked about this before, haven't we? On this podcast, yeah. Right. Let's not rake over old coals. The lipstick, I think, is so comic.
Yeah.
Getting off with Kim Cattrall.
It should be.
And then going to be a tough guy.
That should be a bad joke.
Yeah.
But it works because he's high.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I think it takes... It's a special kind of genius that can make that a funny joke, because it shouldn't be a funny joke.
Exactly. That is... It's a bad setup.
I actually genuinely thought that was quite funny when it just shouldn't have been itself.
Yeah.
But it kind of brought into the reason why, going into the universe of the movie, the reason why they are successful is because they are underestimated by Lo Pan. Because... It's me trying to make sense of the bloody plot.
Do it. That's what we're here for. This is exactly what we're here for, Jim. Don't give up.
Lo Pan underestimates them because of what idiot Jack is. And so, like, when he turns up with lipstick on, there's no way that he can defeat an ancient spirit.
Yeah, a 2,000-year-old demon.
Yeah, who... is just in that one short period of being vulnerable. Yeah. But he still doesn't... But rather than... a hermit crab has a tiny point in its life when it's vulnerable, when it's running between one shell and another, and it does it as quickly as possible because it is aware of its vulnerability. Whereas Lo Pan is so arrogant about how pathetic Kurt Russell is. Jack Burton, I should say. But in character or actor name.
Jack Russell.
Yeah. Yeah, so he underestimates what's going to happen and gets a knife in the head.
Yeah. All in the reflexes.
Indeed. And that is a... what's it called again? Oh, I've completely... the rifle on stage, you better use that rifle.
Oh, yeah, the Chekhov thing.
Chekhov, yeah. It's Chekhov's skill.
Yeah.
Because he catches it at the start of the movie.
Yeah.
You see that skill at the start of the movie, you use it at the end of the movie. If a rifle's on stage, that had better have been fired by the end of Act 2.
Yeah.
Same thing.
It's the only good thing. It's the only cool thing that he does.
Yeah. He's got a silly skill that accidentally...
saves the
day. Yeah. But it's also because they are underestimated because of what a fool he is.
Yeah.
That's really what does it, is that they managed to get into his inner sanctum because they're never considered a threat.
Yeah. I really do love the way that David Lo Pan is so infuriated with Jack Burton every time that they're talking. He can barely get the words out because he's so furious that this numbskull is in front of him.
He hams it up to pieces and is brilliant, I think. He's so good. What's his name again?
I don't know.
James Hong.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so good. Because he's just so hammy and he's, like you say, he's completely ridiculous.
But everyone sort of... Well, I like to think that everyone really enjoyed themselves making the film. Don't you? It does look like they did.
It does, yeah.
It comes across, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so. I liked the hamminess, and I thought, it was good writing, and especially One of the performances that I wasn't too impressed with, but I wasn't really expecting very much of, was Kim Cattrall.
Yeah.
And I think people didn't really want her in the movie because at the time she was just seen as being like a bit bimbo-y.
Right. Well, I mean, what else had she been in? Mannequin.
Wasn't she in...
She was the mannequin in Mannequin, and then
oh,
she
was
was
she?
in, and then she was this, and then, as far as I know, that was it. And then there was the Barren Years, and then Sex in the City.
Wasn't she in... the Police Academy?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, she's in Police Academy as well. Yeah.
I think so. But it did. The nice thing about seeing Kim Cattrall on stage, on screen, it reminded me of Mark Commode's review of Sex and the City 2.
What did he say?
It's 10 minutes long.
Oh
It's amazing. Have you not seen that review?
no.
It's really famous as a review because it's pretty bad. It's a pretty bad review. At one point he says it's pornographic, consumerist, hate-filled piece of propaganda, foul, soul-sucking, horrible vacuum of vile emptiness. I had to write it down because I knew I was going to mention it when I talked about Kim Cattrall because it is so brilliant. We'll link to it in the there's a YouTube of it, and we'll link to it in the thing. It's so funny. He hates that movie so much. But yeah, her first line is something like, "Don't panic, it's only me, Gracie Law," and the way she plays it is really hammy, and it almost feels like she's going to be totally hamming it up. Coen Brothers style, and it was going to be like her dialogue was going to be always ridiculous and in a unlifelike way. But no, it's just because she's not a very good performer.
Yeah. Well, she's never really cut it, has she? Well, I don't know. This is to bits, but I can't think of anything that she's been in that I've thought was amazing.
Oh well, I'm sure she's sobbing into her fists full of Benjamin Franklin's hearing of us saying that she's not a very good actress. So I don't think we need to feel too guilty about it. But by the same token, we probably don't need to dwell on it. She's only in it because she's blonde and thin, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyone else in the I guess in the supporting cast
Stood
out?
Well, I mean, like I think that Egg and Lopan were just absolutely brilliant. Yeah,
It's actually quite a small cast, isn't it? When you think about it, the how many speaking roles?
I liked the because the Storms don't really say anything, do they?
No.
But I did particularly like they were kind of the most whooshy out of the characters, and I really liked some of the funny faces that they pulled, and the sort of come hither finger thing and all of that kind of. Before you have a fight, you have to pull lots of tiger style poses and all that sort of thing. I loved all that. I thought that was great. It's just so silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really think that Lopan and Egg really, they stole it really for me in the supporting cast. Lang was fine; he did a perfectly decent job as the hero of the film.
Well, actually, that's the thing. I mean, the story is really very little to do with everyone that's in the film, apart from Lopan and Egg.
Yeah,
because that's what the story is about. Is here's the thing that's been going on for thousands of years. Here is the guy. Here's the force for good at the moment. Can he actually vanquish his foe? That in a nutshell, that's the only story that there is in the film.
Yeah, well, and there's also
people just running around.
Yeah, well, Wang trying to rescue his girlfriend, I suppose, on a sort of slightly less large way. I thought that the way they resolved Egg and Lopan's fight was dated. Where they do the sort of force beams at each other.
Yeah.
And then they meet up in the middle, and then that turns into almost like a computer game fight. I don't know. That felt a bit dated to me.
Dated for when was it? When is it? 1986. This film.
I think
I
so.
think it is.
Yeah.
Showing the gaps in my research. I think
We never did any of that. We never. We're fast dropping that whole section of this podcast, aren't we?
I don't know if it is. Is it a section? I think like if
Uh,
it's
I guess it's just a way to get started, isn't it?
yeah.
I do think the numbers are interesting on this one. Like, I can actually make sense of what the budget means.
Budget. What was it? 25 mil? Is that
Yeah,
right?
and it made like 11.
And it made
So
11.
I definitely know what that means.
Yeah.
There's no scratch in my head. Yes, it was a very expensive movie, and yes, it really lost a lot of money.
But I wonder if it did, because I mean that's only the box office, right? That's box office receipts, and then
I know that's not a very fair thing, and probably eventually it's made it back.
And I bet it made it on video.
Yeah, probably it did get quite big once. I think the problem was I'm not sure people knew what it was.
Yeah.
They probably thought they were going to see an action movie and thought this is really cheesy.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I can see it and that's it. That's difficult. It's difficult to try and imagine yourself back there.
Because if I mean, I think I watched it as an action movie, but I would have been 10, 9. How we got into it, I don't know. But yeah, and I thought it was a great action movie. I didn't realise that it was sufficiently sophisticated to be a parody or anything like that. I just thought
definitely, yeah, me too. First time watching that, I'm just watching a kung fu movie, and I'm thinking that it's brilliant. Because the other thing you got to remember is that like at the time, it was very much that like the back end of the 80s there, where the action films and the horror films were becoming really, really formulaic. And and always had bits of humour in. Like they always had, like Arnie one-liners, or everyone had gags. They would have slapstick moments in action films, and it was just like it's just tick, 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 tick. I suppose it's kind of the it's almost the that sort of thing is the birth of I don't know. It's with the Simpson and Bruckheimer with their formula. They had to go away to a country house for weeks and just eat peanut butter and do cocaine and come up with the perfect film. The film structure. This is the recipe for a film. Every film is this, and this happens, then this. They had all their where we talk about your culmination and everything, and they had everything sort of worked out. Yeah. Can you imagine it? Like they probably had up, where they have a crime film and there's all the bits of string going in between it. God knows what absolute nonsense they had up on the walls. But yeah, you see what I'm getting at? There was a formula to be done, and this is very much dealing with that formula, putting a film out there, but whether it's you can put this down to it, John Carpenter or the people he was working with at the time, or just lots of different things all just falling together. I think it makes this a very special film.
Yeah. And in terms of the fact that it lost money, I would say that the fact that the studio aimed at the start to try and change the feel of the film rather suggests that it was probably marketed to the kind of audience that just wanted to see an action movie.
Yeah.
And I think if you just wanted to see a straight action movie, I think maybe you'd come out like a Bruckheimer formula action movie.
Yeah.
Maybe you might come out a bit disappointed because it doesn't really feel like that, and a lot of it is quite cheesy, and a lot of the people aren't going to expect to see fights where people jump up in the air at each other and then you see them go hitting each other with swords and then landing the other side and all of that nonsense. They're going to think, well, what's this? Because they're not going to realise what it's paying tribute to. And
they're just going to think, oh, well, that's fake.
Badly done.
Yeah.
When that's the point, is that it's like that we're being made, it's not it's not a tribute to films that were made in the 80s. It's a tribute to films that had been being made for decades and decades before that. You know, very early Hong Kong and Chinese cinema. So the special effects were extremely rudimentary, but they were also the earliest special effects that influenced everything. Just in the same way that it continued to do so even up until this century with things like Crouching Tiger. I mean, amazing and influential movie in terms of cinematography and in terms of special effects and stunts and stuff. So yeah, and I think even though it looked cheesy in the 80s and it looked badly done, it was because it was harking back to a time when that was as sophisticated as you could possibly have it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was before they would just film, it's plays and stuff as well. So those sort of trapeze act fights were being done on stages.
Yeah.
Not just in films.
Do you know a couple of actors who were in the running and they're not doing it? Wang was going to be Jackie Chan.
Oh, okay.
But he wasn't allowed to do it because the studio thought his English wasn't good enough.
Well, it's not.
No.
Because I think one of the things that the film does a little bit of sort of mocking the Eagle Land, the whole sort of America thing. You know, when they drink the toast, they toast America to it, and they kind of laughing about the whole American thing. And I think you needed an American Chinese person to be playing some of those roles. Because it was specifically Chinese American, not China.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally right.
Totally agree. It was one for the Jack Burton character was Jack Nicholson. Would you believe?
Good Lord. I can't imagine what kind of movie that would be.
How on earth would that work?
I don't have any idea. I imagine there'd be some good eyebrow work in it, though.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it. I just can't imagine that. That would be a very peculiar movie.
Yeah, and Kurt Russell didn't want to do it either. He apparently had to be talked into it by John Carpenter.
Wasn't it originally going to be a Western?
Yeah.
And then they just completely rewrote it.
Yeah, and it wasn't going to be his truck. It was going to be his horse that got stolen.
Yeah, and you can really feel the westernness to it. But that's because all of these action movies are, quite a lot of them anyway, are harking back to that sort of Western tradition of filmmaking. And I suppose and there's links between that as a sort of an old-fashioned American storytelling, and how many Westerns, you know, the spaghetti Western remaking Japanese movies as well, and because the stories are very similar. It's all about the story. It's not about the setting, isn't it? And you've got heroes and you know, that sort of lone hero figure. And this film sends that up brilliantly by making a guy who genuinely thinks that he's Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And he's not. Well, he genuinely thinks he's John Wayne. What am I talking about? He actually even speaks like John Wayne, but he's not. He's he's a halfwit. Yeah.
He really, I think his character really holds on to the ending as well. I think the ending is grand because it's more than a surprise. You know, it's more than a gag with. You know, with oh no, couldn't possibly settle down. Well, I could just do this, and it was like, well, nah. And then,
that's so mean.
Yeah, but then when the journalist lady, when she's aren't you ever going to give her a kiss? And then the whole audience is just expecting them to do a snog, and it's just like, nah, and then just walks, and that's basically the end of the film. Then we have the extra little twist on at the end, but that's basically, for me, that's the end of the film, wrapped up really, really well.
Yeah,
and held all the way through, I think, by a weird but very well done, very comical narrative structure of Kurt Russell, the inept hero who does nothing.
Yeah, and also kind of him being the. It's this weird combination of him being the comic relief, him being massively inept, but also him being the only sane man in the nut house.
Yes.
It's just such a weird combination of all these different tropes all in one character. I think that's really clever. It's so much more of a sophisticated character than it initially appears when you start thinking about. Oh, hang on a minute. He's the idiot to which he's exposition because he has to ask all of the audience questions because there's a lot to be explained, and he's the only sane man in the nut house. He's all of those things is brilliant. He does such a good job.
Carries the entire narrative and also delivers some really, really good comic lines himself. And usually you don't. I think it's quite, it's hard to play. Hard to play. Got lots of respect.
Absolutely.
Always respect for the Kurt Russell. Anything else to sum up?
Well, I mean, I actually have prepared my summary of it, and it's very much along those lines.
Good.
That is that I think all you need to say is, on his deathbed, Walt Disney took a piece of paper and wrote 2 words on that piece of paper as his final words. And do you know what those 2 words were?
Kurt Russell?
Kurt Russell. So, enough said. Enough said. He knew about movies. Walt Disney, Kurt Russell.
Right, that's that one all wrapped up. All that's left then, I guess, time to hand over to you, Jim. Tell us what film we're going to be watching next time.
In a blind panic, because at the time of beginning to record this film, I actually hadn't chosen. I'm actually just back off my holidays. But I think I've decided that next time we are going to be doing The Truman Show.
The Truman Show.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So and I don't really know why. I just want to. I feel like I want to watch it again. Normally, at this point, we're supposed to say, "Oh yeah, it was made by this person in this year" and all that. But it's got Jim Carrey in it, and I think it's a great performance by him because it up until that point he'd been Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, so he'd been Jim Carrey in everything.
Yeah.
And then there's
the guy who pulled faces.
Yes.
I think it was Tommy Lee gave him that diss. You're just a guy that pulls faces.
Yeah. Well,
I'm an actor.
I think in this he goes some way to disprove that. I think it's a brilliant movie.
Nice exploration of Cartesian philosophy.
Well, exactly. I thought we could have quite a smart conversation about it. They're going to have to go away and look up Cartesian philosophy. Yeah. So make sure you get that watched, and please do let us know what you think of that movie and what we just said about the previous movie. Tell us what. I'm at the point where I'm panicking and just saying the first movie that comes to my head. We're only 6 episodes in. So give us suggestions about what movies you'd like us to think of. I'm not really, by the way. We've got lists of hundreds of movies that we want to talk about. It's just I couldn't choose between them all. So please let us know on facebook.com/. Tweet us at TATF Podcast. You can email us at show@thesearethefilms.com and check out the website thesearethefilms.com. We have a page up for this film where it will cover some of the things we talked about. There'll be some clips and links, and the video if you want to watch us on YouTube.
That's right, and also not forgetting the other places you can subscribe on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Podbean. And maybe that's all.
Lovely.
We're all over it.
Lovely. Froggy love Daddy?
Daddy love Froggy.